As you can see, this box is so big that it pretty much barely fits on the table. This thing was originally $600 New Zealand at mitre 10, then it got put down to 500. Then it got put down to around 469, and then I was going to pick it up at 469, and then I got there and then they had them on clearance out front for 400. 200 bucks off the original price. Getting it for 400 wasn't too bad. Not sure how much they are in America. I think they're probably like 200 to 300 American, but you know, that's probably like 600 bucks New Zealand. Anyway, let's open this thing up. So, first thing, pull out. So that's the top handle, or the carrying handle for the top. What else we got here? This here appears to be part of the fence, I'm guessing. Not entirely sure, I'm assuming that's part of the fence. So, twisty rod thing. I think that's the rod that goes out the front, where you can use it to turn what angle it cuts at, what degrees it's at. And what's this over here? And that's the piece that screws into the base, and then you can adjust this piece here to press down on the wood to keep it in place to save having your hand on it. So it locks the wood into place while you drop the saw down and cut it. So, put all this stuff over here. And there's still some parts in there. Okay, so this is a dust catcher bag. Would be better if they had a bigger one for a miter saw though, because it's a stationary machine. It doesn't have to be moved around like a sander or a planer or something like that. So I like the ones that have brand names on them. Put that over there. What else is there? A manual. Well, a lot of guys chuck these out before they actually bother to read them. Man, if I'd managed to throw this piece of polystyrene over there and all this stuff fell out, I wouldn't have even known what the hell was in here. It would have been really dumb. So I've got 2 bolts here with hex screws on them. I'm guessing these probably lock the base into it, similar to this one, like these parts on here, where my improvised cutting fence is on there, because I broke the original one and I had to recut a new one to attach to it. So tuck these up here. Yeah, it pays to really look through where everything is before you throw out the packaging, because sometimes there's little plastic packets of screws and things that are attached or cell-taped into something, and you can end up losing them because they're easy enough to miss. Well, the cool thing about this is that it seems to be pretty much mostly pre-assembled. Just needs to have a couple of pieces put on. It's got a clip here that clips the cord into it, so the cord doesn't hang straight. straight back off the machine. Seems pretty cool. So when you first take this out, unlock it when it's in the packaging. Like when you're taking it out of the packaging, just press that and this comes up. And from the other side you just twist this here and then it lets you tilt it upwards in order to make it go down. Let's lock into place. You have to have this pushed down and then you do that. You push that switch inwards, keeps the saw down like that. Do that to straighten it up. You have to have this part loose. You lift it up like that. Automatically in the middle, clicks onto 0. Obviously you'll need to do a bunch of cuts to see if that's entirely accurate, and so that when it's resting at 0, if it's cutting a bit off, have to undo this screw and then tilt this little arrow part over till it's aligned with the 0, so that you know, once you figure out the exact degrees it's cutting with. Anyway, so in order to make it tilt from being straight to the right over to the left, you just have to unloosen that part there. But if you want to make it so it tilts over to the right, you have to tilt to the left a little bit, pull this out and then push it over to the right, because it won't tilt over to the right unless you pull this front piece out, and you can only make it work like that if you pull that out, if you push it to the left, pull that out and then tilt it to the right. So yeah, this one's got wheels on the guard, unlike my other one, and it's got some kind of rubber flap things up here. Know why exactly, but kind of bump into the guard, which is weird. So the top part of the saw is made out of what feels like almost like cast iron, really solid looking feeling metal. Fence doesn't feel too bad, I guess. I think if you break these fences you can just make new ones, as long as you cut to make it like trace over some material and cut it out and have one flat edge. Like that's what I did when my one broke. I'm not sure if they sell these parts from this company. So I've got the arrow down here, which could have been better if it was metal rather than plastic. Yeah, my one's little metal thing on here is little arrow things made out of metal. And I'd say that would have been better if they just made this one out of metal instead of plastic. Could have made it out of metal and then painted it red. This part here, a little bit of give in it, I guess, like it bends a little bit. I really wish they'd make these parts here out of metal though, rather than plastic. Just make it out of metal and paint it red. I know it'd wear off after a while, but still be better overall than plastic, I think, because I don't know if you can buy these replacements like for these parts, you know, because eventually they make so many different models of these, they'll probably stop making the plastic parts, and they're not a universal size. All these machines are different, so that's the thing. And this switch down here, I guess that's where that rod goes into. It's got like a pulley kind of thing down there, which this part's metal, which is cool. It catches in there, but the presser part is plastic. which is all underneath here. So basically I think so. The handle just works as an easier way to turn this once you unlock it, so instead of grabbing it by your hand, you can do it by the handle. So I guess you just lift this up, turn this around here, so you get a different angle cut up here, and that's why that handle sticks out. Like, I don't really like the fact that this mechanism under here is all plastic. Well, I just don't trust fucking plastic, eh? I just think everything would be better if it was metal. This part that locks in underneath here is plastic, like that. See how it's got like all these sort of holes cut into it? This part's metal. And see where it's got 0, 1.5, 22.5, different things. I guess that's where it, like, you can adjust it to any one of these settings, but it's got particular ones that'll lock in. So like that. That's at 0. I think. Well, this would technically be 0 because it's straight on, like more like here. But anyway, I just don't like the fact that this part that locks into the bottom, into that groove there, like this part is plastic. Like, this whole rod should be made out of metal. This plastic thing, this little pointer thing, because you rely on where that is and the fact that it can turn, that should be made out of freaking metal. Obviously, if you do a bit of metal work, you could just make another one, but I just don't like where little really important features on something are made out of plastic. Same with this. It's like, you probably won't break them, but just because like that little arrow is being accurate is like responsible for, you know, how accurate your cuts are going to be, sort of thing. So it's a really important part of the machine to have this part on here, otherwise you couldn't tell exactly how straight things are going to be. So I'd say make one out of metal rather than plastic. So it goes in, only goes in a certain length, so I guess you push it all the way in there, just tighten it up at the back. Does seem like it's quite close to the blade, but oh well. Overall, I think it's a really nice looking machine. I mean, that's kind of what caught my eye to it when I was looking at getting a bigger one of these saws. I mean, my little one does the job, but I thought I'd get a bigger one just for being able to cut like a wider piece accurately. So yeah, this one has the 2 rods that it comes out on, and once I remove that piece of cardboard and zip tie, it'll be able to come out further, so you can drop that down and cut a longer length. I can't tell if this is made out, yep, that's made out of plastic, but it feels relatively solid. This is made out of metal. I think this screw here is to make it so that the rods won't slide. So it's like, if you have it out to a certain length and then you twist that, you can make it so that the sliding arm locks into place. Yep, see? So you undo it, you can slide, tighten it up, and it won't, so you can have the arm fixed at a certain length. There's a part where you attach the bag into the back of it for the sawdust. It's relatively quite big, but I suppose most people who buy these sorts of things have a lot more to work with. Guard wobbles a little bit. I don't really know if that's much of an issue. Mine does a little bit on this little one. I suppose as long as it stays on, it should be all good. Rather than having just a single spring, it's got this arm that goes back, which is made of metal, which I think is really cool. Goes back that far, and then let's see, slides like that. little wheels turn and it does that. So the top of it, plastic, relatively hard plastic though, and it's got a switch up here, so it looks like that turns the laser on and off. I love the fact that it's got this rubbery piece over the switch because that stops the dust and things from getting in there. I always think that that's a really good quality thing when I see one of those covering a switch like that. I think pretty much all tools should have it on there. I mean, sure, they might look a bit ugly once they end up ripping eventually, I guess, but they should generally last a while, especially if you cut your fingernails and you don't dig into it. So in order to get this thing to activate, you have to press this switch in, like this little thing like that, and then pull that, so that's its version of the safety switch. So, and I guess you can probably stick a frickin' Allen key through that hole or something as well, so you know, you could make it so it doesn't, as a secondary thing, if you wanted to make sure no one could pull it. I guess you could actually lock the saw so no one could use it, just chuck a little padlock through there. Yeah, and it actually comes with an Allen key for adjustment on the back, so it's got this handy hole in here which looks a bit weird, but it's got a Phillips head screwdriver on the end of it, and it seems to be quite deep and moist in there, which is quite weird. Yeah, overall relatively nice looking saw, I think. I don't know what this adjusts yet, but I haven't even read the book, so it doesn't really matter. So what brought me to choosing this one was I wanted something that wasn't too expensive compared to some of the other ones, like obviously like freaking mitre saws are relatively cheap on Marketplace, like Facebook Marketplace and things online if you want to get a second-hand one. I bought my other one for $50, and some of them are like 30. You can get the sliding ones for under 100 as well. You know, whether something's new or second-hand, I mean, it's always cool buying something like brand new rather than second-hand, but you know, when it comes to tools and things, as long as it works fine, I don't really care, you know, as long as it doesn't, pieces broken off it or whatever. The reason I bought this one new is just because I kind of like this brand, because it's one of the first tools that I ever bought from this brand, and well, obviously it's my color scheme, so that made it stick out to me, I guess. It's not the biggest one, but it's not the smallest either. I mean, if I wasn't sort of, like, some people are locked into certain brands, you know, they'll like, because they've invested so much money in, like, say, batteries and chargers and whatever the hell else, you know, like if you're Milwaukee or DeWalt or whatever, you know, and you bought like a couple of grand, $3,000 worth of freaking just batteries and stuff, and a whole lot of tools like that, like $400 or $500 each. It's like, you know, you kind of stick with the one brand. For me, I stick with the same colors, so I don't really care too much about brands in a way. Like, I mean, for some brands, I do have my preferred brands, but for me it's generally as long as it's black and red, but I won't really buy unknown brands unless it's like for certain things. So yeah, so that's what appealed to me with this. I thought decent size. I mean, in terms of pricing, like the Makita and the DeWalt ones, probably like twice the price, but then again there are some other brands like the Black & Decker ones and whatever that are like half the price. So yeah, I mean, if I wasn't caring too much about colors or whatever, I would just go for like the Makita one, because I think Makita is a quality brand, and some of these saws are quite nice. They got these really nice like little sliding saws as well, like a really small blade but quite compact, which is sort of suit me a bit more, because, you know, space and everything, especially, you know, like moving something like this would be a fucking nightmare, you know. You can't exactly just chuck it in your van and whatever and just drive around with it. Well, you can, but it takes up considerable space compared to, like, say, some other things. But just because this freaking big piece juts out of it, you know. But yeah, overall I think by the looks of it anyway, I'm impressed. I mean, it's a whole different thing once you start using it and see how it goes, but like, say, from reviews, I think this has got like 4 out of 5 stars. Their table saw has a 5-star rating pretty much from a lot of people, and a lot of people giving it online, and people in videos and things giving it really good reviews. This one only got like a 3.9 or a 4 out of 10. I think some of the problems people said with this was the machining. So like, say, you can sort of see a little bit on here that's not entirely, you know, painted up to the thing. So yeah, a little bit rough on some parts, I guess. Like, you have to really look at it with a sort of fine eye, kind of like. But yeah, things like this you can sort of see, like the paint a little bit rough under here. I can feel that sort of scratching at my skins, like quite a little bit jagged. The main thing is whether the motor's good, whether it's reliable, and whether it cuts accurate, which is, you know, minor imperfections in the body and the paint work, things like that don't really matter. Obviously, if something's done really poorly, you can see that they, you know, you probably can't trust the motor and other parts of it if it's poorly put together. But these are sort of things that aren't really a huge deal. It really matters. But yeah, I mean, for something like this that's mass produced and has a whole lot of machining to make it, I would assume, you know, it's kind of, can let them get away with a bit of that. But yeah, see up here, that part looks a bit rough. I don't know if you can really see with the thing on it, but for some reason it doesn't like, it has a safety switch for the actual trigger itself, but it doesn't have a safety switch where it locks in, like stops it from going down. So I don't know, maybe that's common, not entirely sure. Well, this one, see, it's like you can't bring the saw down unless you go like this, like, and then when you bring it back up, locks into place. So I don't know if this one has that kind of safety feature on it yet. So it comes with a saw, dust bag, key, work clamp, and 254mm blade, and it spins at 5,000 RPM. Max mitre angle 50 degrees, max bevel angle 45. So straight out of the box without any adjustment, and cuts like a dream. Pretty much perfect. Laser good accuracy. Completely smooth, no frayed edges. Right down the line. And that was from cutting it with where this laser is on the wood. So it cuts just after where the laser is. Not right on it, but just after it. So it came with this clamp here that you can attach to this part of the fence. So you twist that out so the metal piece is out, you can put that in. It goes in, you can adjust it for its height. Really put it at the first one and tighten that up. So you can have it at its highest or lower it down, I guess, if you're turning it around. But it's supposed to be a quick clamp, it says on here, so there's no winding involved. You just pull this up, go like that. So that means if you want to clamp your wood down, it's not like my other drop saw where I have to like manually wind it down onto the wood, which kind of makes me not want to do it, because you know, if you're going to do that for each piece, it's going to take a long time. But with this, it's going to be a lot shorter. So the bar here is made out of metal, which is cool. This is metal, this is some kind of hard plastic, but you can go down like that, line it up with that line on there, and then I guess you just press this down to lock it into place. Yep. So that's fixed the wood down pretty hard enough. I mean, you could pull it out like that, but it's hard enough that it's not going to probably move. This laser guiding part can be turned on and off, this switch up here. So I'll turn it off. So it hasn't cut quite right on the line, but I'll see if I could just do some adjustments. So basically, I'll put the laser back on, and that cuts there. So it's just past the line. So this is right on 0, however this little plastic arrow thing doesn't look like it's on the 0 setting, but the arrow's pointing away from it. So it does have a part in here that when you go like that, it's got different settings, but this one's right on 0, so I'm guessing this is how it's meant to be there. But if it's not cutting straight on that, then I guess what you really need to do is to just fine tune this if it's coming up at an angle. So see, because when you drop it down, that's where it's cutting to, which is just after where the line is and just after where the laser is. But if you pull it towards you slightly, just like pull it over this way a little bit, then it will hit the wood. So and isn't 100% on that, but it's pretty close. I'll do another one on another piece of wood. Check that bastard in there. So it's pretty much right on it. Right on it. And I don't know if I can drop my thing down far enough. So I guess I'll need to probably lower this a bit. Lower that down. As far as it'll go. Will it go any further? Nah, because this fence is there. So I guess this is only good for wood that's actually quite thicker. I guess regular wood, you still have to hold it while you cut. But yeah, anyway, I'll just hold it and then I'll do it. So it's pretty much accurate. Hold it here. Pretty much perfect. Slightly curved in the middle in a way, I'm not sure, but I'd say that's pretty perfect, and it's really smooth as well. On the other side, yeah, and I'd say the thing The thing I really like about the saw as well is it just sounds cool. It doesn't have so much of a harsh, really quite loud noise compared to my other one. I haven't used a whole lot of these, but just the sound of it, it's got sort of a like whooshy kind of sound to it, and it's really quite nice to use. Yeah, it has a bit of a kickback when you pull the trigger, so unlike my other saw, so when you pull it, it actually like it sort of pushes upwards. I don't know if that'll bother people much, but yeah, so just something to be aware of, I suppose. It's got a relatively decent reach, although not in this area because this desk isn't far out enough, but yeah, so sounds relatively smooth. You go like that, the whole motor lights up because it's got like a freaking light thing in, like I guess a lot of tools do this, they have that flash in the motor, but this gets really quite bright, so it smells a little bit like polystyrene as well. I don't really know if that's going to be an issue. I'll use this saw for a while because I've got a whole lot of wooden projects to do. You can sort of see I've got a hell of a lot of wood in here to get through, so I've switched from my little mitre saw to this one because I thought, well, I'm leaving here soon, so I want to get some work in this thing. I was looking forward to getting this, and it's a little bit big for this workshop, but I'll do a lot of cuts with it, and then after I finish my projects I'm going to cut up a whole lot of wood just to, that I'm getting rid of. So in the later part of this video I'll say exactly like how it fared overall, how accurate it was, if it had any issues or anything like that. I think it's really cool that it has this laser though. I don't know how reliable it's going to be over time, but it's a cool feature. So far the things that I like about this is this clamp is quite cool. I do think it would have been a bit cooler if they put like a cut in this in the fence up here, if they put like a thing so like you could adjust it, so see how it goes down a lot further, but because the fence is there you can't lower it down. So basically this is only really useful for gripping larger, like thicker pieces of wood. So as far as I'm aware, I mean, this might actually have a purpose, but the fence being this tall, yeah, it kind of gets in the way. I mean, I understand that having a taller fence is probably good if you're using thicker wood, it's more support, but having a notch cut out of it here probably wouldn't affect the fact that if you had like thicker, like taller wood, that probably wouldn't be an issue if you cut a thing out of it. So I think that they probably should have cut a wedge out of there so you could lower this down, or at least make it so if you didn't want to affect the fence, which would be the easier way, you could just make this rod a lot longer so it would sit up here as opposed to down here, and then you could lower it onto the wood. So if you didn't want to hold it with your hand, you could clamp it, and like for really thin wood you could still clamp it if they just made this part a bit longer. However, I think it's a cool thing because I was inclined to not use the clamp like I said on my other one because it was a twist thing, and I found it just a lot faster to just put the wood through myself, just hold it each time, cut off, next one, but it's a cool sort of safety feature if it means you don't want to hold it, and it's a convenience thing. I think it's quite good. Just would have been better if you could lower it for the smaller wood. I love the laser thing. Don't really know how long it'll last, but it's a pretty cool feature, which means I don't have to line up the blade with the wood each time. I could just know where it's going to cut if I know where the laser's going to cut. So yeah, I like the sliding feature, a decent reach on it. The base seems relatively heavy, like quite tough. Fence, yeah, it's all good. It's a bit harder than my last one, I think. So I'm guessing this is going to be similar to my other saw in the way that you untighten one of these things and you can pull this out. So set the foot. Got wood supports on here, so if you've got a longer piece, it provides more support for the wood hanging over. So it's like, you know, if you're cutting a long piece from this side, you know, and it's supported here, that means that it's not going to be balanced badly, so it's less likely to stand up, sort of thing. So I'm going to keep that out, and it's got one on the other side as well. I love the durability of this thing, like how it feels anyway. Like, this is a freaking strong metal housing for this. The plastic feels relatively decent, quite thick. The guard maybe a little rickety, hard to tell, but it's fixed on with this and has this part here to make sure it opens and closes, I guess. Strong plastic itself, I think, relatively decent, just a little bit kind of weird like that. And I don't quite know what these flaps are. I guess they're to sort of make it so that the wood, like shavings and dust and stuff, gets sucked back into here more so than dropping down onto the cutting area. Another thing I really like but I can't use yet is this this handle here. So it sticks out the front so you can turn it easier. You press this down and you can turn it, have it out here, but I just don't have enough space at the moment for that, but I want to attach it. And it also has a convenient carrying handle that you attach to the top, I think up here, because this thing is a little bit of a bastard to carry around, especially if you were somebody who had a van and you take these to a job site. You kind of ideally want a decent handle on it. So the Allen key go on this side. It's got one down here, the hex bolt. Open that, and then pull that out. So yeah, it's relatively decent with these. Fold it, you know, if you want to put it away or move it around. Quick way of making the bevel work by just tilting it to one side. You don't have to unlock anything. Goes back to 0. If you want to make it tilt to the right, you tilt it slightly left, pull this knob out, and then pull it over, and it leans the other way. I've seen a few people review this saw as being badly because they say that it's not a proper dual bevel saw, but I think that's the thing, is a lot of people don't realize that you need to take this piece out in order to tilt it to the right. So when you've taken that out, you've tilted it over, you just have to tighten this red knob at the back, so that way it'll be locked in place and you can cut on an angle. So if you want it to go back to 0, undo this knob at the back, push it back there. It's quite weighty, and then that piece here just locks straight back in. You want it to stay over the right, leaning over to the left hand side. Tilt it over this way, do this up, locked into place, and you can cut it on an angle. However, if you cut on an angle like this, you're going to need to remove your fence. because the fence isn't quite you'll hit your fence. So these fences are removable by turning these knobs and sliding them out. So if you're gonna cut on an angle like that, you're gonna have to make sure and remove the corresponding fence. Unlike my other saw, this one comes out in left or right rather than having to remove the whole piece, and it goes straight back in easy enough. You don't have to align it or anything like that. The thing that I love about this thing is this as well, is that you just keep pulling it over to this side. When you want it to go back to 0, you just go like that, and it just snaps back into place. So it rests at 0, but if you pull it over, it'll tilt to the right. That's why you have to make sure and do this thing up. Now it's got this part on here. I'm not entirely sure why there are 2 screw holes that have been cut out but no screw in them. If you want to change the blade, first turn it off, pull that out. If you're looking to change the blade, press this button in, rotate the blade until the button pushes all the way in. Then the blade will no longer move in the forward direction, and then you can insert the Allen key in here. The blade change might be a bit of a pain because you're going to have to remove the guard, and you'll have to remove the guard arm. It's a bit like an angle grinder where you press on the button at the top and rotate the disc until it locks in, and then you can undo the bolt. So far I'm actually really impressed with this thing. I mean, I don't really have too much bad to say about it. I mean, there's some little imperfections on there and things like that, but overall, if you're like a trade worker or somebody who actually uses this sort of shit a lot, little things like that aren't going to matter, because you're going to get it so covered in dirt, dust, whatever the hell, you know, like knocks and freaking things, that it's not going to stay pristine anyway. But you know, unless you're like looking at it like right up close, it looks like it's relatively well cut and machined. It's just little things like that. I've understood that some people have had these things where they've ended up a lot worse, where say like they've had little nicks and cuts along here, and I don't think that sort of thing's acceptable. I think like the guide area for the blade, that should be like really checked over before each one's sent out. So if somebody's got problems like that, I can understand them being pissed. But this thing looks relatively good, sturdy, freaking hard metal construction. That there is the wire for the laser. One other thing that I really like is that thing on the back. So you don't have the power cable just hanging down. It actually goes out and is clipped onto this part where the slide is, the slide rails. But the motor's the main thing, so I'll have to see how it does over time. The guide here with the numbers made out of metal, which is cool, and it's made into the base, so it's not gonna buckle or get ruined like the way some of them might. Yeah, so I'm gonna get back to doing some cutting and see you later.